Texas, the issue is.
I'm Stephen Dial from Dallas.
I'm Rudy Koski in Austin.
And I'm Greg Grugan from Houston, and this is Texas, the issue is. After an historic two-week trial, the Republican-dominated Texas Senate acquitted Attorney General Ken Paxton on 16 separate articles of impeachment. In the end, what was forecast by Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick as a political trial turned out to be exactly that. On the floor of the Republican-dominated Texas Senate, they went down. Article after article after article of impeachment. All 16 charges against Attorney General Ken Paxton. After nearly 2 weeks of whistleblower testimony alleging abuse of power, retaliation, obstructing a federal investigation, and bribery, it wasn't even close, with most voting to acquit along partisan lines. Immediately afterward, in a telling move, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick tongue-lashed the Texas House in a pre-prepared speech.
Millions of taxpayer dollars have been wasted on this impeachment. 31 senators and a large Senate staff that made this trial possible have put their family life, their jobs, their business on hold for the last 3 months after already being here from January to June. I'm going to call next week for a full audit of all taxpayer money spent by the House from the beginning of their investigation in March to their final bills they get from their lawyers.
Houston attorneys Tony Busby and Dan Cogdill led the Paxton defense and were quick to label the outcome foreseeable and righteous.
We are proud of the case we put on. We should not have had to prove our innocence, but that's what we did.
Do y'all have any concern that this will have a chilling effect on future whistleblowers?
Look, no. What I'm relieved about is it won't have a chilling effect on people that run for political office. This is a trial that should have never happened. Period. Full stop. Leaders
of the House prosecution team had a much different perspective on the overwhelming outcome, accusing Senate Republicans of elevating politics above holding errant elected officials in their party accountable.
This trial painted an accurate and clear picture of an out-of-control Attorney General who refused to listen to the desperate warnings of his conservative lawyers that he had entrusted to help run his office.
Our lawyers, the Board of Managers, presented overwhelming evidence that Ken Paxton is the most corrupt politician in the state of Texas at this time. And the Republicans in the Texas Senate just returned him to the office of top cop.
My word for what unfolded is cynical. Rudy, lay it on me.
I'm going to quote Tony Busby and say, hogwash.
All right, Stephen, how about you?
It's abbreviated. No, it's hyphenated. No coincidence.
All right, the Fox Texas Trio has a lot to discuss after this short break. Welcome back. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton accused by his top lieutenants of abusing his power, retaliation, obstructing a federal investigation, and accepting bribes. Saturday, as many had predicted, the Republican majority in the Texas Senate found him not guilty of each and every allegation. Of all the arguments made in Paxton's defense, this is the one I found most compelling.
Heard from the FBI with regard to Attorney General Ken Paxton. Crickets. Nothing. Nothing. If you don't think that the Biden administration and its FBI and Department of Justice would not love to indict Ken Paxton, then you're not paying attention.
With that, Stephen, what just unfolded here?
I just want to note on the crickets part, we actually heard crickets in the Senate chamber and throughout Austin. That's a whole different story. To quote one of my favorite rappers, Jay-Z, politics as usual. That's what this was. Now, some people already predicted that this would fall along party lines. 2 Republicans broke away, one from the DFW area. But this really shows that at the end of the day, like Dan Patrick told you, Greg Grugan, this is a political trial. And that's what it was.
All right, Rudy, you've been covering this process for a long time. I'm guessing you are not surprised.
Yeah, I agree with Stephen. It was a political trial with the Lieutenant Governor said it would be, and it turned out to be a political trial. I think if the one thing that surprised me out of this whole mess was the articles voting against the articles dealing with the whistleblowers. I think if anything was going to stick, that one was going to stick, and that sent a really strange message, disappointing message, and I think a message that could come back and haunt the Republicans. I think people will remember that they threw the whistleblowers under the bus, and it didn't sit well with me, and I think that that's going to come back and haunt them, and I'm wondering, are we going to look back on this day as the day that the Republicans started losing control of the Texas Capitol?
Wow. Wow, Stephen, at the end of this trial, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick read a pre-drafted speech tongue-lashing the Texas House for wasting millions of tax dollars and the Senate's time. What do you make of that?
Well, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is correct in one point. There was a lot of money spent on this. I mean, you can't get around it. I mean, $500 an hour for some of the biggest lawyers in the state of Texas. But if you really look at it, and that's why I said politics as usual, the senators went and deliberated, right, and then came out and made their public vote. And the Lieutenant Governor had a pre-typed speech. And I don't think one of his staffers were typing real time as the votes were coming in. Some of this was already known, and let's be real. Now, regardless of what your leanings are, what you think about Ken Paxton or not, piggybacking off of what Rudy said, you had whistleblowers who are Republicans. These aren't even moderate Republicans. One was denied a federal judge position because he made some disparaging comments in reference to the LGBT community. And so I'm kind of shocked. I know we shouldn't be shocked. Greg, you may not be shocked, but it may have a lasting impact, and we'll have to just wait to see how this plays out.
All right, Rudy, looking forward. Now that he's been cleared by his fellow Republicans, do you see Paxton using this exoneration as a springboard to higher office?
You know, Greg, you described it as they just released the Kraken. Not quite yet. Before he can get to that springboard, he's got some big hurdles to get through. He's got these criminal cases that he's got to get cleared from. He's got the bar charges, the ethics charges. He's got to get past those, which is why I kind of agree with the Lieutenant Governor. Maybe the process does need to be changed up some, and through a more open process, hearings on the House side, more thought through, and maybe the House members jumped the gun. Maybe they should have waited for all these criminal charges and the federal investigations to play through first and then act. Maybe they put the cart before the horse.
Maybe. Clearly, Stephen, with their verdict, the Senate has hung Republican House members out to dry, so to speak, with the GOP base. Do you foresee a civil war in the upcoming special session and the primaries beyond?
Well, if there wasn't already a civil war, we are definitely going to see that. Now, it just matters how much, I guess, nice Dade Phelan may want to be, follow procedure and the spirit of the Republican Party. But Dan Patrick ripped the House. He ripped Dade Phelan and Andy Murr and all the impeachment managers. We're all dumb if we think that there isn't going to be some form of backlash from that in the House. Could be in the form of school choice or something bigger down the line.
Yeah, I agree. Rudy, Patrick, who accepted $3 million from the pro-Paxton forces, stuck it to the House pretty hard. Do you believe it's a war?
Oh, it's total war, total all-out war. And it wasn't it interesting that the Paxton statement that he pushed out, he called this whole process immoral. That's like a bullfrog calling somebody ugly, right? Boy, that was something. And yeah, it is all-out war now. I think school choice died on Saturday. If any kind of form of school choice that they have been pitching in the past, which really isn't school choice, but another welfare type program, entitlement program, but from the GOP, if they pitch that back to the House, that's dead on arrival, right?
Quickly, Rudy, was justice done here? And one word, yes or no?
Hogwash.
All right, Stephen, same question. Was justice done here?
I don't have an answer, to be honest.
All right. Well, look, that's all the time we have. To see this episode or any of our past shows, go to our station's YouTube channels.
And I know you want to, so let's keep this conversation going by messaging us on social media.
And if this week was any example of why you should tune into The Issue Is, stay with us next week for another hot topic. And remember to let us know what you think the issue is.